Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Blissfully Living. I'm here with my great friend Brian. And today, Brian has suggested that we talk about the role of spirituality in peak performance.
Yeah.
What made you pick that question, Brian?
So it's a combination of different things. I think, well, I have a personal interest in peak performance, flow states, that kind of stuff. And from my reading and from the people I've spoken to, a lot of high achievers and peak performers have some sort of spiritual practice, whether it be connected to psychedelics or whether it be religion. A few of these things I feel like are like inseparable from peak performance. If you look at philosophers, Greek philosophers, you have a lot of German philosophers that are have this like experimentation with psychedelics, and in turn these people end up having some sort of spiritual awakening, spiritual enlightenment. So I think that's really interesting, and I know that obviously you have you have a very deep spiritual practice as well, and being a high performer yourself. Yeah, I'd like to pick your brain on how these two things really interconnect with each other.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a role of spirituality for peak performance. But I do want to just carefully define spirituality so we don't think spirituality is something other than this experience that we're having right now, because a lot of people, when they use the word spiritual, they think something other than this, something super, something beyond that we're trying to reach to. And
So what is your definition of spirituality?
yeah, I think I actually thought about that before I came, and you can never give it a definition, but I'll try my best. And there's gonna be a lot of words that I'm gonna say. I'll explain what each of them mean, because that's a lot. But I think spirituality is the recognition or the understanding of who we are, and how that self expresses itself in a form of this mind, this feeling, and action in our world. So maybe a little bit going into it in more detail, to know who we are as peace, power, love, and joy, and also as this presence of infinity and eternity that expresses itself in a form of what we call mind, heart, and the belly, which is action. So the best analogy that I can sort of give you to make this very easy, think of like the idea of a game. You're playing a game. So you, Brian, you have a controller. You're playing GTA, right?
Sure.
Spirituality is about recognizing who you are as the player, playing, expressing yourself in a form of the avatar, right? So imagine
So the game in this case is your body, or your experience of life, right?
Experience of life, yeah. Knowing who you are, imagine you playing a game of Call of Duty, and you get lost in the game, right? Like you think you're weak in the game, you have limited power, limited resources, and I say, Brian, look who is playing the game, the main player, right? So when you turn back away from experience towards this awareness that is your true nature,
Right.
you recognize that there is a power, there is a peace, there is a love. That's then, from understanding and recognizing that, then you can, with this understanding, can bring it back to the player. So you go to yourself, who you are, as this presence of peace, joy, power, and love, and wisdom. I'll explain each of those words because they're very
Sure.
concept-laden words. But yeah, to understand who you are as these qualities, and then bringing it to the avatar, and the avatar is your mind, your feeling, and your action, right? So yeah, I can go into what I mean by each of those words. I've used the word infinity, eternity, power, peace, love, and wisdom.
Okay.
So there's a lot there.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think before you go into that, I want to ask your opinion of whether you think a person that is not in touch with all these things that you mentioned, their spiritual side, so to speak, are they still capable of maximizing life in order to be as high performance as possible? Like is
Yeah.
spirituality inextricable from performance, or do you think, people can just do the right things?
Yeah,
Right.
that's a really good question, actually. I'm glad you asked that. I've been thinking about this question for a while, and I think a lot of people can subconsciously bring the understanding of who they are into the world without even realizing it. And how that works is, for example, you may not believe in something metaphysical called love that is in the world,
Right.
but subconsciously, without realizing it, you may come from compassion. So, to give you an example, someone may be an atheist, not believe in any of these things, but they listen to someone with compassion. And just the act of them listening with compassion, they are utilizing that love that is their true nature. But they, on a conscious level, they haven't conceptualized to themselves what it is that they're doing,
Right.
but they're doing it anyways.
So what you mean essentially is that having a spiritual practice doesn't necessarily require labels or words necessarily. It's the actions that you embody that bring these qualities into your day to day, right?
That's beautiful. I think spirituality is having thoughts that is in alignment with the qualities of peace, power, love, and wisdom, and having feelings that is like empowered or compassion or love, and having doing actions in the world that is based on feeling one's power. So
Right.
you may not think about metaphysics at all, but you may be just having positive thoughts all the time during your day-to-day life. You may always feel compassion for people in day-to-day life, and you may be fulfilling your responsibility and serving your community as best as you can. So you already are utilizing principles of cultivating a peaceful mind, loving heart, and an illuminated action.
Sure.
That is in service towards the community.
Yep.
So you may not conceptualize what you're doing, but in so long as you have those thoughts, positive thoughts, loving, empowered feelings, and empowered action in service of others,
Sure.
then you're basically doing what a spiritual person does. The only difference is the spiritual person knows what they're doing on a conscious level. It's like I am driving a car and I know the mechanics of the car. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
Now, maybe knowing the mechanics of the car does actually accelerate your abilities. It is possible. I'm open to that. And I think it does. I think knowing who you are on a conscious level has impact on how you think, how you feel, and how you act.
Right.
That is more than just subconsciously doing them. So I do think there's an extra thing. But people who don't know it still can be as spiritual, so-called spiritual, as somebody who's has a deep spiritual practice.
Right. But so just immediately, like a counterexample that I'm thinking of is people that like use negative emotions or like the dark side of their emotions, their thoughts and feelings to motivate themselves in order to be very high performing, right? You examples like David Goggins, who's very much driven by his like inner demons, his childhood trauma, that type of stuff. So yeah, what would you say to that?
That's a really good question. Thank you for asking that. And I think it's a question that's been really personal to me because I've been going through a lot of shadow aspect of myself. So it's really personal, that question. And I think what is really happening is the process of transmutation. So there are so-called dark thoughts, dark feelings, dark beliefs, dark emotions that everyone encounters in their life, right? Everybody. Self-doubt, lust, and like anxiety, depression, seeing yourself as inferior to others, as superior to others.
Sure.
All of these so-called dark attitudes, feelings, and thoughts. So when David Goggins has these feelings and he's using it to motivate himself, what he's really doing is transmutation. So there is a base material, like in alchemy you have a base material that's like lead, right? It's still energy, and it's neither good or bad, it's just energy. And the labels, the judgments you have on that is what it makes it good or bad. So this base energy of anxiety, whatever it is, if you use that base energy and then you do something with it, like for David Goggins is physical action, right? You use that and then you go into your body, you move your body, and you transmute that base feeling, which is like so-called negative,
Sure.
but it's only a feeling. And then you transmute it to something more positive, which is physical health, confidence, health in the body, power in the body. How if you're an artist, I think a lot of artists do experience the shadow part, because the shadow is actually energy. That's what the shadow is a lot of energy.
Right.
So all artists, all creative people have a lot of shadow. But the whole goal of the shadow is so that we learn who we are as this presence of awareness that I mentioned. And then we can utilize these shadows and transmute them to higher faculty or higher emotions or higher actions, whether that's creativity, whether that's power in the body, whether that's creation, whether that's love and personal relationship, whatever it is for you. Maybe you're archetype of a lover, your archetype of a warrior, your archetype of a magician. So depending on your archetypes, you can transmute these feelings into higher forms of feelings or thoughts or actions. So in the case of you, you're creative, you're entrepreneurial, so you may use these dark feelings and use it as motivation, and then you become creative. You do your coding, you start to code and create what you want.
Sure.
So I think ultimately.
But do you think there's a danger in that for burnout? Like, is all these like negative emotions a sustainable energy source? Like, eventually, does that run out? Is it dangerous in the sense that you can drop into like a Great Depression?
Yeah. Okay. There's nothing that is sort of counterproductive with using these dark energies, because the understanding is we are in a physical universe, three-dimensional universe, whose nature is challenges and difficulty and sort of limitation, right?
Right.
So in fact, the more you recognize who you are as this presence of power, peace, love, and joy, so this whole understanding that you're this presence of awareness, what it really means is that you are unaffected by anything that arises within you. So from being this pure awareness, right, like this observer, any negative emotion that arises within you does not affect you. It is only an arising of something, right? What you do with that is obviously like a choice. It's an intention.
Sure.
If you use that dark feeling and you have an intention, okay, like I'm gonna work with this into something positive, you are doing alchemy and transmutation. So with like sexual energy, if you don't waste it, and I think it's really challenging for a lot of men today because they're exposed with to a lot of pornography. But if you don't waste that sexual energy is neither good or bad, right? If you then use it maybe as a motivation to go and do martial arts or go and create a podcast, then you're doing alchemy and transmutation. So there's nothing bad about it. In fact, it is what we got to do, because the physical world is filled with this shadow aspect of us.
Right.
And our job is not to judge them, but to utilize them as energy source. And there's a beautiful passage by Saint Germain that says something along these lines, that the whole point of us experiencing these dark feelings and like the shadow part, it's so that the light can shine through the shadow, right? So there's like a hole in the universe, like a black hole, right? There's like a feeling of lack, a feeling of suffering, right? If you go to who you are as this presence of awareness, you go to this light, and there is a shadow, right? The shadow is an opportunity to bring the light. So we have this amazing power to use any opportunity where shadow manifests itself to bring the light to the shadow. And as such, we can reveal the nature and the power of who we are through that activity of going from the shadow to the light and bringing the light back to the shadow to transmute it.
Okay.
So.
And in terms of like practical exercises, like when you're talking about transmutation, like are you using visualization? Are you expressing gratitude? Are you doing gratitude journaling? Like how are you transmuting this energy? Is it just meditation, contemplation? writing.
It can be anything for you. I think whatever that allows you to move the energy. So you have an energy. What is your tendency, your unique tendency to move that energy? Is it physical? Is it spiritual? Is
Well,
it
I think I tend to be quite a physical person.
physical?
Yeah, like I'm very bad at sitting down and thinking through emotions and problems and feelings. I got to be doing something, like whether that's going to the gym, doing
Yeah.
jujitsu, or
Yeah.
just going for a run. That
Yes.
helps clear my head a lot. And I think what you said about like transmuting the negative energy, I do see just personally, anecdotally, that I'd like hit a PR when I'm like feeling these like strong negative emotions because I'm using that to make that extra push, so like the extra rep or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it. So yeah, I can see that in a practical sense. In terms of like chasing performance, just more of like a philosophical point of view, do you think peak performance is a end in itself or a means to an end? Like which one do you put first, as in because my take on it is that you have spirituality and peak performance. These are things that are interconnected because just for example, taking religion, right? Like if you have, say, a strong deep religious belief, you are more likely to act in accordance with certain values, and take certain actions to further your goals, right? So
Yeah.
something that you consider to be morally right, to be aligned with your spiritual or religious teaching. So in that sense, I feel like someone, say two people separately are moving towards the same goal, and one person has like the metric ton of faith behind them. You know that, like, just look at
Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali, or you look at like Habib, like Hamza, all these people like believe in God, and that I feel like gives them a special level of conviction that a normal person might doubt themselves in the same situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. In the case of Habib or any of these sports athletes, they never began as their goal was not never like their main goal in life is not peak performance. Their main goal in life is to know who God is and to commune with God. Now, the word God here, I would like to rephrase it as the nature of who you are, because I believe what the religious people call God is our being.
Okay.
Is our being. So, and this being is an aware being. So when you say I am, and you say Brian, before Brian is Brian, before Brian has any thoughts, before Brian has any feelings, before Brian acts in the world, Brian is just this pure I am. It's this field of awareness, right? And it hasn't been given name or form.
Right.
And when you open your eyes, then you create form with perception, and you create like an identity with your with your thoughts, repeated thoughts and repeated patterns of feelings and acting in the world. But before Brian is Brian, if you remove your memory and just tune into yourself, before there is anything, before you are colored by your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, you are this pure presence of awareness. And the word for this presence of awareness is I am. So when I say that I'm using this understanding for Habib and Muhammad Ali, they say God. I believe today a lot of people are not happy with the word God. They want something experiential. So when you say I am, is an experiential thing because it's within yourself. In fact, it is yourself.
Yeah.
And is the one that is observing or is aware of all of your experiences, your thoughts, and your feelings. So to answer your question, it's true. Whether your belief is in God or in this I am presence within yourself, you are placing your faith in something that is not physically limited. Like the body is physically limited, right?
Yep.
The mind is limited. But if you go to this I am presence, or for Habib and Muhammad Ali, to God,
Yeah.
there is this field of infinity, eternity, power, peace, confidence, love, joy. And this field is so powerful, so full of energy, even though it is empty, but it's not empty of it's empty of physical things, but it's full of potential and full of pure energy. So yeah, the more you can go to that place and then bring the qualities of this I am presence to your life, to your thoughts, to your beliefs, to your feelings, then you bring that's what I call zero dimensional point.
Okay.
So I don't just call it that. So I said I'll call it that, but this is something I've learned from a lot other teachers.
Okay.
So there's a zero dimensional reality of who you are, and the reason it's zero dimensional is that your hands have dimensions. Like there is like width, height, and depth to
Yep.
your hand, to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
body. Everything, even a thought, has like a limitation. Like a thought appears, then it goes away, right? So your physical body is conditioned by the physical limitation of the three-dimensional universe. But when you go to this awareness, right? Awareness, you cannot find where it is. Like I can find my hand. My hand is here. My hand has a dimension, has a location in space-time. Same with your like the room around you. Everything you see, all the objects have a spatial dimension, has a dimension in space, and it has a certain limitation, like certain boundary.
Right.
Go to the experience of awareness, just being aware. This awareness, I cannot say it is here or there. It is just aware. It is not in physical space. Because physical space is in awareness. I am aware of physical space.
Right.
So it is zero dimensional. So think of the number zero. There is a power to number zero, isn't it? Like in a way. And the reason I'm using this as a metaphor is not number zero, right? So number zero is like, you can say it's nothing. It doesn't have any power, right? Awareness can be said to be the same thing. It is nothing. It doesn't have any power.
I think I read somewhere that like before the number zero was invented, it was basically like blasphemy to even consider the
Yes.
number zero
Yeah.
because everything started from one, right? So
Yes.
yeah, no, I do find that interesting. Yeah.
Yes. If you go experientially to this zero dimensional reality, right now, you can do this by simply resting your awareness in yourself. In awareness. Like you're not focusing on any object, you're just aware of awareness without any effort.
Is this different from mindfulness, for example?
It's very different because when mindfulness is a technique, this is tasting your true nature. So for Habib and Muhammad Ali, they would go through God and they would experience this power, this peace, these qualities that I spoke first. And I can go into each one of them, what they mean.
Yeah.
It will take a long time, but I can give you a few examples. So the quality of zero is peace. Why? Because awareness is like zero in a sense that it's empty and it lacks agitation, it lacks movement, it lacks anything that is changing. It is the stillness, right?
Okay.
Like the number zero, like doesn't have anything.
Right.
So, but the power of this is that within this zero dimensional field, you can create anything. You can. That's why the best time to create something is when your mind is empty. From this place of emptiness, you can bring forth knowledge, wisdom, understanding, creativity that arises naturally from this zero dimensional field. So that. I can go longer, but I think I'll I'll wait here for you to respond, and then I can go further into it.
Yeah. So personally, I don't think I've necessarily. I might have experienced this zero dimensional field, but not realizing it, right? But what it sounds like, what it reminds me of, is like the qualities of like a deep flow state, for example.
Yes.
So like Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about like the characteristics of flow, for example, being like time dilation, where either an event, either a short period is expanded into what feels like eternity, or the other way around, where hours go by in the matter of what you perceive to be seconds, right? And I wonder if these two things are similar in the sense that like people have done studies on flow state, like Stephen Kotler, for example. Like he's shown that pretty much every significant scientific, artistic, or even sports performance breakthrough, right, in the last however many years, has all been done in flow states, for example. So I think he started off as an extreme sports journalist. He followed big wave surfers, extreme like skiers, and they would tell him these crazy experiences of this complete, almost like emptiness state that they get into when they're performing at their best in that like timeless, formless state, and
Yes,
in turn that's when they create their best work. And I think most people listening, and ourselves included, would have experienced to some extent, along the spectrum,
Flow state.
some type of flow, whether it be doing drawing, right, or you're just extremely focused on a piece of work, and like you just like 3 hours, 5 hours go by without you realizing. So do you think there's a connection there between your zero state and flow states, or do you think it's a separate concept entirely?
It's pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
The difference is I'm giving you the philosophy of it.
Sure.
Whereas the flow state,
Yeah.
what the experience of the flow state is the merging, complete merging of awareness with experience. Awareness, I said, is our true nature, who we are.
Yeah.
If you completely merge awareness with experience, what you're doing is you bring in the qualities of awareness, which I said was infinite, eternal. Infinite is like boundless, there's no boundary. Eternal means there's no experience, there's no time, right?
Sure.
In the experience of flow state, because of your love and your devotion, it's all to do with the heart. If your heart is engaged in something, and for athletes it will be the heart and also the physical body, but it's mostly the heart because they're devoted, they love what they're doing. So from this experience of loving what you're doing and the devotion, you bring awareness and you completely merge it, make it one with experience. In other words, philosophically speaking, you bring the qualities of that zero-dimensional reality and you merge it with dimensions of life. So then the dimensions of life, things that have a limitation, all of a sudden don't have a limitation. All of a sudden is beyond time and space. And then the subject experiences that as flow. But what the flow really is a tasting of our true nature. But not many people will understand the philosophy of what has happened.
Yeah.
But this philosophy is...
Where does this philosophy stem from?
I think it's called the perennial philosophy, which is like a universal philosophy where all the mystics of the world, all the Christians, Muslims, even Buddhists, Hindus, all the mystics of all these traditions talk about this reality that is so close to us that we almost miss it. It's like there's a saying that the recognition of this I am presence of who we are, it's so obvious than the most obvious of all truths, but it's
Right.
also so hidden than all the hidden truths. So what that really means is, if we are always aware, right? We don't notice that we're aware. Like we get lost in this sea of awareness.
Do you know if this awareness or zero state is associated with a particular type of brainwave, particular frequency? Like,
That's a really good question.
like for example, if you look at like Jose Silva's work, when he talks about like Silva mind control,
Yeah.
it's basically like he teaches you to get into states of deep alpha, so between alpha and theta, where you're in this like deep meditative state that can be quantifiable in brainwaves and with technology that we have right now. And like he's shown to have been able to perform what some might consider like supernatural feats of recalling things from years and years ago to manifesting certain realities to come true. Like initially I think I was quite skeptical about visualization, manifestation, all this kind of stuff, but even if you just look at the anecdotal evidence of the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that have gone through a program like Silver Mind Control, you do see, I guess, like pretty repeatable, tangible results that people experience. And so that's partly why I'm also like more open and more curious to the spiritual side of performance and how to achieve success, right? Because if you look at like Napoleon Hill writing Think and Grow Rich, you know, a classic on making money and doing business and stuff like that, and he just talks about, you know, like the belief that you have to have, the strong, deep belief that the thing that you desire can happen, you expect it to happen, and you believe that it is possible, right? Because if you don't have the belief, I forgot who said this, but there's this quote like, pessimists are always right, because it's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I guess in a practical sense that means like turning down potential opportunities because you're just like self-selecting yourself out of taking these chances because you don't believe that either you're good enough or you're prepared for these opportunities, right? So like I'm still at the beginning of my spiritual journey. I don't necessarily know if I believe like in a higher consciousness, higher power, or whatever, but at least the argument that gets me through the door of being open to discussing and like considering these ideas is the fact that, going back to that religion thing, where I think the power of the mind is very strong, and that if you have this strong, unyielding, like one directional belief that you can achieve something, then your actions will also like align themselves to achieving these goals. Because I don't think you can separate belief and like the side of the mind from action, right? Like you can't, or at least I don't believe that you can just sit there and meditate and suddenly have $1 million, for example.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think it needs to be a combination of both.
Depends about
I don't know.
Have you tried meditating to manifest money?
No, I haven't.
So how do you know?
Well, exactly. I don't know for sure, but at least from my experience, like I do think you need a bit of both.
Yeah, 100%. You said a lot of different. You mentioned a lot of different points. I wanna address them one by one. Sure. So your first point was, what are the brain waves that correlate with the experience of being aware, like this experience of being in this pure awareness state?
Yep.
I think it depends what you're doing with that. So if it's sport, I think with sport, if I'm correct, it is a lot of gamma waves, because it's like deep concentration. It's not just being aware in a relaxed sense. You are very much in your body, like with martial arts.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of gamma because you need to be totally engaged to defend yourself and to to
you can't be half asleep.
You can't just be aware of awareness. What you're doing is you're merging awareness with your experience in a form of an embodied action.
Right.
But obviously you don't conceptualize it like that, but I'm just telling you the mechanics.
Yeah, sure.
So now this experience of being aware can also take place in a meditation when you're sitting down, right? So you become aware of, like if I say to you, Brian, become aware of the space of this room, right? Not any objects, not your hands, just be aware of the space.
Yeah.
Like right now, try it, right? And then I say to you, okay, imagine awareness to be like a space. Now that you're aware of the space, be aware of this awareness, which is like this meta space. Now, the reason you may struggle is awareness is not a physical thing like space. So you may struggle to find it, but if you go to this experience of being aware of the space, and just take that extra leap. Now, become aware of this awareness that is like a space. Yeah, so like this field of empty knowingness, empty awareness that is all around you.
Okay.
So, if you do that, I think you go into alpha. It feels like alpha to me. I'm not in theta, because theta I'm more of a dreaming state. So I think I'm somewhere between alpha and gamma.
Okay.
But I think more alpha.
Sure.
Yeah. But if you are in this awareness state, but you're doing artistic things, like you're just channeling some artistic ideas, I think you're in alpha and gamma as well. Because alpha is like creativity, gamma is deep concentration. I think you switch between gamma and alpha. Now I think if we go to this experience of being aware, we also combine love and compassion. So we are aware of awareness, but with love. Like, how I can explain that is really hard, but like, can you love?
Try your best.
Can you love this space of awareness that is all around you? Like, send that you're loving and compassionate right now. Like, you can send love to me right now, right?
Sure.
So try it. Send love to me. I can send love to you. I can send more. I can have an intention of compassion
Right.
directed